So good morning, everyone, and welcome in Paris. I'm Laura Magro, Deputy Director in CEEBIOS, in charge of scientific development. And as a French member of the Cost Action CEEBIOS, we are very glad to host, at least virtually, this event. So many thanks to URAC Research and all the cost restore, all the participants and speakers, and especially Estelle, Cruz and Eduardo Blanco for the organization of this very rich and ambitious program. And I hope that all of you will enjoy and benefit from all the various and complementary talks today. As an introduction, I would like to say a few words about biomimicry, this approach, its context, and more specifically, what happens in France, and to open towards the interaction between biomimicry and restorative innovation. And this point will be more deeply addressed by Estelle and Eduardo during this day. Okay. So first, the approach of biomimicry. It's obviously an innovation strategy that consists in being inspired by the living to reach optimized solution, considering that the species evolution can be seen as a 3.8 billion years of research and development, trials and errors. And as well-known examples, we can talk about the Shinkansen and all aero and hydrodynamics projects in which the biological morphology of an organism enabled to redesign more efficiently vehicles, for example. Also, the gecko feet is a dry and reversible adhesive that enables to stick on any surface. We could also have talked about the lotus effect, its property of self-cleaning, or the spider silk, that is one of the toughest fiber, better than Kevlar or steel, but made of organic compounds at room temperature. In any case, it's a pluridisciplinary approach that combines biology and technology, so the innovation really comes from the merging of competencies. The approach of biomimicry relies on the principle that the living is full of outstanding properties. So I don't know if you can recognize this organism and have any idea of the main features that make them really remarkable. Just to describe some of them, you have this butterfly that can detect, thanks to its antenna, female pheromones at a distance of 10 kilometers. So it has a very sensitive chemical detector. The abalone shell is one of the toughest materials, whereas it's mainly made of chalk, which is quite brittle, but because it's structured at a micro scale with just 5% of proteins, it becomes very solid. So this is a focus at an organism level, but obviously the same observation is relevant at lower and at bigger scale, such as ecosystem, which will be, I think, a point of interest, more specifically for the ideas that will be shared today. So you can see that there is quite a broad variety of features in the living, so it can be applied to any industrial sector. Consequently, biomimicry is not a scientific discipline, not a particular field. It's more an approach and methodology that can be applied in various contexts at various scales. So this constitutes both its main strength because it's a very powerful tool, but it can be also seen as a weakness because it can be hard to delimitate, to understand the perimeter and to delimitate the main actions. These last 20 years, there has been a growing and global interest in biomimicry, and you can focus on remarkable initiatives like research centers dedicated to biomimicry from the molecular scale to material science and also at architectural design level, both in the US, in Switzerland, and in Germany. And in fact, more specifically in Germany, they have dedicated a very operational roadmap on biomimicry that really combine research, industrial projects, and education. And more recently, Japan, Nordic countries also demonstrated a strategic position on this topic by defining a national roadmap. So what happens in France? What happens in France? We already identify a rich and dynamic ecosystem with more than 200 research teams that display a high-level scientific expertise that can contribute on on many topics like bio-inspired materials, energy, water management, etc. There are also successful startups from the deep tech that have already raised a significant amount of money. And biomimicry has been identified as a promising approach to combine innovation and sustainability in several government reports. Finally, a main opportunity in France is our access to biodiversity from our maritime area and overseas territories. And thanks to the National Museum of Natural History that can provide around 68 million specimens available for exploration. So despite this potential, there was no visible incarnation of the biomimicry in France, neither coordination of the competencies to increase the impacts. That is why 6 years ago, CEEBIOS was created. CEEBIOS is a French Center of Study and Expertise in Biomimicry, dedicated to the promotion and spreading of this approach in France by federating a network of national competencies and providing actions that favor the blooming of bio-inspired projects. And within 6 years, we gathered many partners, operationally contributed to technical and sustainable projects, and providing many resources that are available on our website. Today, the team is composed by 21 people from various backgrounds: engineers, architects, urbanists, designers, and obviously biologists. The legal status of CEEBIOS is a non-profit cooperative society of collective interest in order to really fit our commitment in a bio-inspired approach in the service of ecological transition. We work with partners from all the industrial fields, with research institutes and higher education schools, with public institutions, like, for example, ADEME, the French Agency for Environment and Energy, exploring together the essential interface between bio-inspiration and eco-design. In parallel of specific bio-inspired R&D projects, we work on a larger scale by collectively defining the specifications of biomimicry for main industrial fields. So the Biome City Lab is a French group of architect agencies, engineering companies, property developers, builders that work together on the idea and realizations of bio-inspired cities, nature providing a realistic model to operationally meet the great challenges the humankind is facing. In parallel with the thematic approaches, we also initiated territorial networks by working with the regions and by building local communities. Currently, and in collaboration with the laboratories from Arts et Métiers and the French Museum of Natural History, 3 research projects are carried by CEEBIOS members. First, Anne Letard is a designer, and she works on the methodological aspects by exploring the role of designers in a bio-inspired project and by combining creative design tools with biomimicry. Then Estelle Cruz, which is here today, work on the multi-parameter regulation of biological envelopes and their transposition into bio-inspired building envelopes. Finally, Eduardo Blanco, which is here also, studies how the ecosystem services can help the eco-design of urban projects. And all these research programs are strongly related to operational projects in order to benefit from relevant feedbacks. Today, the question of restorative and regenerative approaches is to go from a reduction of impacts towards positive ecological contributions. So we strongly think that biomimicry constitutes a relevant framework to fulfill these commitments, providing operational solutions. Just to illustrate this point, but it will be detailed later in the day, the study of opening and closing of stomates or on plant leaves or flower petals drives the realization of a passive adaptive facades that provide thermal and light regulation. Again, the thermal regulation and ventilation of termite mounds enable the design of this church with high passive thermal performances. Finally, the Scholar Group of Science and Biodiversity displays in multiple ways how the building can support life with birds, insects, and plants with natural colonization. All these examples are described and analyzed in the report on bio-inspired urban projects. Estelle, Cruz, and Eduardo Blanco will also tell you more about these initiatives in the morning and in the afternoon today. You can also have a look on the other thematic reports we published. Very sorry, but all of this is in French for now. And I really invite you to have a look on the great videos, Nature Equal Future. You will have some of them during the day, but also Super Nature, that really display many relevant current examples of biomimicry. Also, I invite you to be part of the annual event Biomim Expo. That is a big showroom and a very friendly event dedicated to biomimicry in France and in Europe. So thank you for your attention.